Philip set up an experiment as shown below. He placed a celery stalk with leaves in a beaker of red-colored water and left the setup by a window for a day. What is the purpose of the layer of oil? The layer of oil prevents the water in the beaker from evaporating. Which one of the following correctly states the observations Philip will make after a day? Color of leaves, green with red patches. Amount of water left in the beaker, ml 300 milliliters. Explanation: the red-colored water will be absorbed by the celery stalk and stain the leaves. Philip cut across the stalk of the celery and observed it carefully. He saw some red dots on the cut surfaces. What can he conclude from this experiment? Water is transported in the water-carrying tubes of the plant. Explanation: the red-colored water stained the water-carrying tubes red. Danny knew that plants make food in their leaves. However, he was puzzled when his teacher told him that food made by the plant shown on the previous page was stored in pot 10. How did food get stored in pot 10? The food made in the leaves was transported to pot 10 through food-carrying tubes. Explanation: the food made in the leaves was transported to pot 10 and stored there. Danny removed a part of the stem, as shown in the diagram on the previous page. After a few days, the plant still looked healthy, but pot 10 did not become bigger. What is the likely reason? The plant was unable to transport the food made in the leaves to pot 10, as the food-carrying tubes were removed. Explanation: the food-carrying tubes are found in the outer ring, while the water-carrying tubes are found in the inner ring. The water-carrying tubes were not removed, so the leaves still received water and were able to make food. Jenny removed a ring of stem from the stalk of a yellow flower. She then placed the stalk in blue-colored water, as shown below. After a day, she cut the stalk at points A and B to observe the cross-section of the stalk. The table below shows her results. Section AA, blue stains. Section BB, no blue stains. What would the color of the flower be? Yellow. Explanation: since the section of the stalk at BB had no blue stains, the water-carrying tubes were most likely removed. Therefore, the blue-colored water was unable to reach the flower, and the flower would remain yellow. Joe wanted to thin out if plants take in water through their roots. Which setups should he use to carry out the experiment? A and B only. Explanation: the aim of the experiment was to find out if plants take in water through their roots. Hence, the variable that should be changed in the experiment was the presence of roots. The layer of oil was added to ensure that the loss of water in the container was not due to evaporation. The stalk of a white rose is cut in half as shown below. Each half is then soaked in different colored water for a day. Which one of the following correctly describes the colors of the rose? Red, blue, white and purple. Explanation: as the water-carrying tubes absorbed the colored water from both beakers, the white rose will have red, blue, and purple patches. William prepares two setups as shown below. He removes most of the roots from plant B. What is the aim of this experiment? To find out how the number of roots affects the rate at which a plant absorbs water. Explanation: since most of the roots of plant B are removed, this experiment is to investigate how the number of roots affects the rate at which water is absorbed by the plant. Which of the following variables should be kept constant to ensure a fair test? A. The amount of water in both beakers. B. The number of leaves on both plants. C. The size of both plants. D. The species of both plants. Explanation: the variable that is changed in this experiment is the number of roots of each plant. Therefore, all the other variables should remain constant.
Which one of the following correctly shows the amount of water in each beaker after 2 days? Beaker A. Amount of water. Before the experiment, 300 milliliters. After the experiment, 250 milliliters. Beaker B. Amount of water. Before the experiment, 300 milliliters. After the experiment, 280 milliliters. Explanation: with more roots, plant A is able to absorb more water. Study the diagram below. Sally removed 2 rings from the stem of a plant. She watered the plant daily and it remained healthy. A few days later, she noticed a bulge on the stem above ring A. What could be the likely reason for the bulge above ring A? The food-carrying tubes were removed together with ring A, and the plant was unable to transport the food made in the leaves downwards. Thus, food was accumulated at the bulge. Explanation: food-carrying tubes transport food made in the leaves to different parts of the plant. Sally noticed that there was no bulge at point X, which was below ring B. What could be the likely reason? The food-carrying tubes were removed together with rings A and B, and the plant was unable to transport the food made in the leaves downwards. Thus, no food reached point X. Explanation: food from the leaves was unable to reach point X as the food-carrying tubes were removed when rings A and B were removed. Gary removed a ring of stem from points P1, P2, and P3 of a plant. He then placed the plant in a beaker of blue-colored water, as shown below. The plant had 3 white flowers, F1, F2, and F3. After a day, Gary observed the flowers. The table below shows his results. Based on the diagram and the results, what tubes were likely removed from points P1, P2, and P3? Tubes removed. P1, food carrying tubes. P2, food carrying and water carrying tubes. P3, food carrying tubes. Explanation: since FL and F3 were blue, water carrying tubes at points PL and P3 were most likely not removed. From this, we can infer the relative positions of the water-carrying tubes and food-carrying tubes. Food-carrying tubes are on the outer ring, while water-carrying tubes are on the inner ring. Since F2 was white, food-carrying and water-carrying tubes at point P2 were most likely removed. Sophia wanted to find out about the plant transport system. She selected a plant with a storage root. Storage roots are roots that are modified for storing food or water for a plant. She carefully removed the ring from the stem, as shown below. Then, she put the plant in a beaker filled with a nutrient solution. She left the plant in an open field where it could receive sufficient sunlight. She observed the plant over a period of 5 days. The table below shows her observations. A. Based on the results in the table, which tubes, water-carrying or food-carrying tubes, were removed by Sophia? Food-carrying tubes. B. Explain your answer in A. The leaves of the plant were healthy, so the water-carrying tubes were not removed. The storage root did not grow in size after 5 days, so the food-carrying tubes were most likely removed. The plant was unable to transport the food made in the leaves to the storage root. C. On day 6, Sophia made a deeper ring on the stem. At the end of the day, she noticed that the plant had withered. Explain the importance of the plant transport system. The water-carrying tubes are important as they transport water from the roots up the stem to the other parts of the plant. The food-carrying tubes are important as they carry food made in the leaves to the different parts of the plant. The plant transport system ensures that all parts of the plant receive the food and water they need in order to survive.
The following equation shows the process of photosynthesis in plants. Carbon dioxide plus water with light and chlorophyll will produce sugar plus oxygen. Plants require light to photosynthesize. Ollie wants to find out if the color of the light affects the rate of photosynthesis. He places a lamp near a water plant, as shown below. He turns on the lamp for an hour and collects the gas produced by the water plant in an inverted test tube. He then repeats the experiment for other light colors by changing the bulb of the lamp. Identify the variable to be changed in the experiment. Color of the light. At the end of 1 hour, for each light color, Ollie measures the volume of gas collected in the test tube. His results are shown in the graph below. Ollie concludes that the rate of photosynthesis is highest when the color of the light is W. Use the equation and the above graph to explain how Ollie reaches such a conclusion. During photosynthesis, sugar and oxygen are produced. A higher rate of gas production will indicate a higher rate of oxygen production, hence a higher rate of photosynthesis. The graph shows that when the color of the light is W, the rate of gas production is highest, indicating that the rate of photosynthesis is highest. The water plant carries out photosynthesis in the leaves and stores the excess sugar in the fruits. How does it transport the sugar produced in the leaves to the fruits? It transports the sugar through food-carrying tubes. Kelly bought a potato from the market. She left it in the kitchen, away from direct sunlight. On day 5, she noticed a shoot on the potato. It grew bigger by day 7. Where did the shoot get its food from? The shoot got its food from the potato. B. How was the food in A. transported to the shoot? The food was transported to the shoot through food-carrying tubes. Lynn set up an experiment as shown below. She wanted to find out how the number of leaves affects the rate at which food is stored in the fruits. She got 2 identical plants with 4 fruits each. The fruits were of the same size at the beginning of the experiment. State 3 other variables that must be kept constant to ensure a fair test. The amount of light that both plants get must be the same. The amount of water given to each plant must be the same. The amount and type of soil in both pots must be the same. Lynn measured the size of the fruits. The table below shows her results. B. How was the food made in the leaves transported to the fruits? The food was transported to the fruits through food-carrying tubes. C. What can Lynn conclude from the results of her experiment? With more leaves, the plant was able to make more food, so more food is stored in its fruits. Alan made a few cuts on a stalk of celery. He then placed the stalk in red-colored water, as shown below. What would happen to the leaves of the celery after a few days? Explain your answer. The leaves would wither and would not turn red. Cuts were made at different parts of the stalk, removing the food-carrying and water-carrying tubes. Therefore, the red-colored water would not be able to reach the leaves. Laura grew 2 plants in a pot. She noticed many aphids on the plants. She did some research and found out that an aphid feeds on plant sap, which contains food made by the plant. The aphid has a part on its mouth called the stylet. It will insert the stylet into the tubes in the stem of the plant to draw out the sap. Which tubes in the stem will an aphid most likely insert its stylet into? Food-carrying tubes. B. Laura removed all the leaves of the first plant. 2 days later, she noticed that all the aphids on the first plant had moved over to the second plant. Why did the aphids move from the first plant to the second plant after all the leaves from the first plant were removed? When the leaves were removed from the first plant, the plant was unable to make food. Since aphids feed on the food made by plants, they moved over to the second plant, which was still able to make food. Which of the following correctly shows the parts of the plant where food-carrying tubes and water-carrying tubes can be found? Food-carrying tubes, all parts. Water-carrying tubes, all parts.
Marilyn carried out an experiment where she placed a celery stalk in a beaker filled with red coloring tap water. After a day, she cut a cross-section of the stem and observed the cross-sectional view, as shown in the diagram below. A. What is X is labeled in the diagram. X is the tubes in the stem that transport food, water and mineral salt. B. What can you observe from the magnified cross-section of the stem? The water-carrying tubes are located closer to the inside of the stem and the food-carrying tubes are located further away from the inside of the tube. C. Marilyn replaced the celery stalk with a white flower in her next experiment. What will she observe after 8 hours? There would be a lesser amount of water left in the beaker. The petals and the leaves of the flower will turn red. Which of the following is a function of the stem in a plant? Supporting the plant upright. The diagram shows a plant placed in a container containing blue-colored water. The magnified cross-section of the root is shown below. Which of the following correctly explains the function of the part that is stained blue? It transports water to all parts of the plant. The diagrams below show 2 different setups, which are left overnight. Which of the following shows the best possible aim of the experiment? To find out if the stem has separate tubes to transport water.
The diagram below shows a leaf. A. What is X and Y? X. Stalk. Y. veins. B. Name the tubes that can be found in X and Y. Water-carrying and food-carrying tubes. C. The tubes transport substances to and from the leaf, as shown by arrows A and B. What are the substances transported in the direction indicated by the arrows? A. Water. B. Food. Wyman placed plant Y, with green leaves, in a flask filled with red-colored water, after cutting off its roots. E. What will Wyman observe about the leaves of plant Y after a few days? Explain Wyman's observations. The leaves of plant Y will turn red. Even though the roots are cut off, the stem of the plant has water-carrying tubes, which can transport water to the leaves. Ashley and Brett both made models of a plant stem for their science lesson. B. Whose model is a better representation of the plant transport system? Explain your choice. Brett's model. There are two tubes in plant stems which are responsible for carrying food and water separately. Tom prepared setups A, B and C using the same type of plant. He removed some roots from the plants in setups B and C and removed some leaves from the plant in setup C, as shown. What is the aim of Tom's experiment? To find out if the number of roots and leaves affect the amount of water taken in by the plant. Explain why Tom placed a layer of oil above the water in the beakers. The layer of oil prevents the water from evaporating, so any drop in the level of water in the beaker is solely due to the plant taking in water. Tom observed the volume of water left in each setup over a period of 1 week. Arrange the setups A, B and C in order of volume of water left in the beaker, starting from the one with the most. C, B, A.
Sylvia removed the water-carrying and food-carrying tubes from a plant and noticed the changes after 1 week. A. Explain why the leaves died after 1 week. The leaves were unable to get water and mineral salts, as the water-carrying tubes were removed from the stem. B. Sylvia also observed that there is a swelling above the ring at the stem. Explain what could have caused this to happen. The food or sugar made in the leaves could not be transported to the lower part of the plant. Thus, it accumulated above the ring of the stem, causing it to swell. Food made in the leaves is transported to the other parts of the plant by the food-carrying tube. Water and mineral salts are transported from the roots to the other parts of the plant by the water-carrying tube. Which statements about the transport system of a plant are correct? Food made by the leaves is transported to all parts of the plant. Water absorbed by the roots is transported to all parts of the plant. Joey was transferring a young plant into a pot. She accidentally bent the stem, as shown in the diagram. What caused the young plant to be unable to make food? The leaves cannot receive water from the soil. The leaves cannot receive minerals from the soil. The diagram shows a flowering plant. Based on the diagram, which of the following shows the correct direction of movement of food and water at Part C? Direction of movement at Part Z. Food downwards only. Water upwards only. The diagram below shows a green plant. How does X obtain its food? The food is transported from the leaves. Jamie removed the food-carrying tubes of a plant as shown in the diagram below. She left the plant under the sun and watered it daily. Based on the information, which of the following diagrams best represents the appearance of the above stem after 1 week?
An outer ring of a stem between positions A and B of a plant is removed, as shown in the diagram. Only the food-carrying tubes between positions A and B are removed. Which of the following diagrams represents the appearance of the stem after some time? The diagram below shows a cross-section of a plant stem. A. Fill in the blanks with food-carrying tubes or water-carrying tubes. Mutu cut an outer ring of the stem between parts 10 and Y of a plant as shown. After some time, he observed that one part of the stem was swollen. B. Which part of the stem was swollen? Explain your answer. X. Food made by the leaves was unable to travel downwards beyond the cut and accumulated at X. Yvonne carried out an experiment on the stem of a plant, as shown. She observed that only the leaves at A died after 2 days. E. Explain why the leaves at A died after 2 days. The water-carrying tubes of the plant were removed so the leaves at A cannot receive water and mineral salts. B. Explain why the leaves at B survived after 2 days. The food-carrying tubes were removed, but the water-carrying tubes were still present. Hence, water and mineral salts would still be transported to the leaves at B. The diagram below shows 4 parts of a flowering plant. A. Draw arrows in the diagram above to show how water is transported in a plant. This is the flow of water from the roots to the stem and then to the leaves or the flowers. The diagram below shows an insect eating its way into the stem of a plant. After 3 days, it was observed that part 10 of the stem was swollen. B. Explain how this would eventually affect the growth of the roots. The insect has eaten away the food-carrying tubes in the stem. Food from the leaves cannot be transported to the roots of the plant and will accumulate at part 10. The roots of the plant will eventually die. Farmer Ben conducted an experiment using two similar plants, Y and Z. He removed an outer ring from the stem of plant Y, but not plant Z. The table below shows the difference in the stems and fruits of plants Y and Z. Farmer Ben observed that plant Y produced bigger fruits compared to plant Z. Explain why bigger fruits were produced by plant Y. The food-carrying tubes are removed in plant Y. The food made in the leaves cannot be transported out of the branches, so more food is stored in the fruits, causing them to be bigger. B. After some time, plant Y died. Give a reason why removing the outer ring of the stem caused it to die. The food-carrying tubes were removed so food made by the leaves cannot be transported to the roots, causing plant Y to die.
Elizabeth placed a plant with two white flowers, A and B, into a beaker containing red-colored water. She removed a ring from the stem at positions M and N, as shown in the diagram below. After 24 hours, flower A remained white, while flower B turned red. Based on Elizabeth's observation, which tubes were likely to have been cut and removed at positions M and N, respectively? Tubes removed at position M, water-carrying tubes and food-carrying tubes. Tubes removed at position N, food-carrying tubes only. Draw arrows in the diagram below to show how water is transported in a plant. Concept: water is transported from the roots through the stem in the water-carrying tubes to other parts of the plants. The diagram below shows an insect eating its way into the stem of a plant. After 3 days, it was observed that part 10 of the stem was swollen. Explain why. The food-carrying tube was broken or damaged by the insect. Food made in the leaves cannot be transported below the broken part and stored at part 10. Concept: food-carrying tubes transport food made in the leaves to all parts of the plant. B. After a few more days, the roots died. Give a reason why the roots died. The roots did not receive any food. Concept: all living things need food to survive.
Study the cross-section of the stem shown. Which of the following statements about the xylem is true? Xylem carries water and minerals from the roots to the leaves and other parts of the plant. The stem of a plant has two sets of tiny tubes running through it. One set of tubes, called the xylem, carries water and minerals from the roots to the leaves. The other set of tubes, called the phloem, carries food from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Explanation: the stem of a plant has two sets of tiny tubes, xylem and phloem, running through it. The xylem carries water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves and other parts of the plant. Gina found some wood ear fungus growing on a log. Which of the following conditions are essential for the growth of the wood ear fungus? Water and oxygen only. Explanation: wood ear are fungi. They are not green plants and do not carry out photosynthesis. Hence, they do not require the elements like carbon dioxide and sunlight, which are needed by green plants to make food. Since wood ear depend on dead and decaying materials for food, they would only require oxygen and water to survive. Which of the following best describes the function of the stomata on the leaf? They allow for the exchange of gases. Explanation: the stomata on a leaf allow gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide to move in and out of the plant. The stomata do not help the plant to smell or see. Also, they do not secrete vegetable oils. Which of the following best describes the function of the roots? The roots take in water and minerals for the plant. Explanation: the function of the roots is to take in water and minerals for the plant. The roots do not transport water and minerals to other parts of the plant. It is the stem that carries out this function. Food is manufactured by the leaves. Supporting the branches and spreading out the leaves is a function of the stem. The green leaf is responsible for the production of food for the plant. B. Gaseous exchange, underside of the leaf. C. Getting rid of excess water, released through the stomata. D. Trapping light energy from the sun. Explanation: green leaves are responsible for producing food via photosynthesis by trapping light energy from the sun. The stomata on the leaves allows for gaseous exchange to happen during photosynthesis and respiration. Excess water is released through the stomata in the form of water vapor through transpiration. The following statements about plant parts is correct. Plants carry out photosynthesis in the leaves. Plants exchange gases through the stomata. Plants transport food from the leaves to other parts of the plant through tiny tubes called phloem. Explanation: the water-carrying tubes in the stem that transport water and minerals are called xylem.
John wants to find out if plants give out carbon dioxide during respiration. Which two setups below should he use for this experiment? B and D only. Explanation: since the aim of the experiment was to find out if plants release carbon dioxide during respiration, the only variable that John should adjust is the presence of a plant. All other variables should be kept constant to ensure that his experiment is fair. John should use setup D, as lime water should be used as a test for carbon dioxide. This is because lime water turns chalky in the presence of carbon dioxide. John also requires another setup as a control. He should use setup B, as it also uses the same apparatus and the same test material, but does not contain a plant. Explanation: the other two setups use iodine as a test material. These setups would not be useful to John's experiment, as iodine does not test for the presence of carbon dioxide. Furthermore, setup A uses a different plant. If John uses this setup, his experiment would not be fair. Reese wants to find out whether plants require light energy to carry out photosynthesis. Which two of the following setups should he select for his experiment? R and S. Since the aim of the experiment was to find out if plants require light energy to carry out photosynthesis, the only variable that he should adjust is the presence of light. All other variables should be kept constant to ensure that his test is a fair one. Reese should select setup R and setup S, as both setups use identical apparatus and plants of the same height. The only difference between the two setups is that one is covered with a glass box and the other is covered with a black box. Hence, between these two setups, all variables are kept constant, except that one plant is given access to light and the other is not. Setup P should not be used because it contains a plant of a different height from the rest, and setup Q does not even have a plant at all. The diagram below shows two setups which Penny prepared for an experiment. Each set of apparatus was placed at a different location. Penny discovered that plants need sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. In Penny's experiment, she set up identical sets of apparatus, and the only difference was the locations at which she placed them. The difference between the two locations where she placed each setup, one in a dark room and the other in the garden, is the presence of light. We can therefore derive that Penny was conducting an experiment to find out if plants need sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. Eric left some white roses in a vase containing water mixed with orange food coloring. He checked on the flowers after 24 hours. Suggest what Eric would observe. The white flowers would have turned orange. B. Explain your answer in A. The colored water traveled up the stem through the water-carrying tube to the white flowers.
The diagram below shows the cross-section water-carrying tubes of the stem of a balsam plant. The roots of the plant had been immersed for 1 day in water mixed with blue food coloring. Which of the labeled parts of the plant would be stained blue? The part of the plant labeled Q is stained blue. B. Name the part of the plant in A that is stained blue. It is known as the xylem or water-carrying tube. C. Describe the function of the plant part mentioned in B. The function of the xylem is to help carry water and minerals from the roots to other parts of the plant. The diagram below shows gases that are taken in and given out by different living things during different life processes. Identify the process represented by the bold arrows and state when this process occurs. The process is known as respiration and it occurs all the time. B. Identify the process represented by the small arrows and state when this process occurs. This process is known as photosynthesis and it occurs only in the day when there is sunlight. C. All living things take in oxygen all the time. Although only 21% of the air in the atmosphere is made up of oxygen, suggests why oxygen has not been used up over time. Oxygen has not been used up since plants release oxygen when they carry out photosynthesis. Study the experiment set up below. A gas was produced in test tube A and passed into test tube B via a delivery tube. What do you think will happen to the lime water? The lime water will turn chalky. B. Explain your answer in A. When yeast ferments the sugar, it gives out carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide turns lime water chalky. Rena placed a balsam plant in a beaker of water, as shown in the diagram below. Why did Rena pour a layer of oil on the surface of the water in the beaker? She wanted to ensure that no water would be lost through evaporation, as that would affect the results of her experiment. B. 24 hours later, Rena found that the water level in the beaker had dropped. What do you think may have happened to cause a drop in the water level of the beaker? The roots of the plant had absorbed the water. 2. How does the plant lose water? The plant loses water through the stomata in the leaves by a process known as transpiration.
The diagram below shows a seedling. Identity the parts labeled X and Y. X. Leaf. Y. Root. B. Why does the part labeled X grow upwards, while the part labeled Y grows downwards? Different parts of the plant have different functions. The leaves grow upwards towards the sunlight as they need sunlight to make food for the plant, while the roots grow downwards in search of water for the plant.
Sama prepared the 4 pots of plants, as shown below, for his experiment. Which 2 of the above setups can be used to prove that plants lose water through the leaves? A and C only. Look at the diagram of the plant below carefully. What do the arrows in the diagram indicate? They show the path taken from the roots to the other parts of the plant by water and oxygen. Keith set up 2 similar beakers that contained the same amount of water. He placed a plant in beaker A and a similar plant with no leaves in beaker B. He added a layer of oil in both beakers to prevent loss of water through evaporation. He placed the 2 beakers near the window. After 3 hours, he found that the amount of water left in beaker B was more than the amount of water left in beaker A. What does this experiment show? Plants need water to make food. The diagram below shows a leaf. Study the arrows carefully. Which one of the following correctly represents A, B, and C during photosynthesis? A. Carbon dioxide. B. Oxygen. C. Sugar. Rahim wants to find out if the intensity of light affects the rate of photosynthesis. Which one of the experiments shown below will ensure a fair test? A, C, and D.
Cecilia set up an experiment as shown. 5 hours later, Cecilia went back to the experiment to make some observations. Which of the following observation and conclusion made by Cecilia is correct? Observation: the celery stalk in A was not colored, but the celery stalk in B had red stems and leaves. Conclusion: there are tubes in the celery stems that transport water and dissolved substances. Danielle set up a pot of plant, as shown below, in an open field. She observed that the roots grow sideways. Explain why. This was because the roots grew towards where there is water. The diagram below shows the cross-section of the stem of a balsam plant. One set of the tubes is indicated by the letter A, and the other set of tubes is indicated by the letter B. What are the correct functions of the 2 sets of tubes, A and B, in the plant? Tube A transports food. Tube B transports water and mineral salts. The diagram below the development of structure Y in a plant. The following statements about Y are correct. It absorbs water. It can reproduce. Audrey set up an experiment, as shown below. She left the two setups in the same location for 4 days. She measured the volume of water in the two beakers on day 1 and day 4 and recorded the results in the table as shown below. Given that the rate of evaporation is the same throughout and using the results given above, how much water did the plant take in from day 1 to day 4? Rate of evaporation 400 to 350 equals 50 milliliters. Decrease in volume of water in beaker A 400 to 250 equals 150 milliliters. Volume of water plant taken in 150 plus 50 equals 200 milliliters.
Sally left a stalk of celery in a beaker of red solution. The next day, when she cut a cross-section of the stem, she saw some red stains, as shown below. What does this experiment show? The water-carrying tubes transport water to all parts of the plant. B. What is the purpose of Part 10? Part 10 is the food-carrying tube that transport food from the leaves to all parts of the plant. Mabel carried out an experiment on a plant by cutting a 2 cm ring at point A and a 1 cm ring at point B. He observed that the leaves at position Y died after a few days. The diagram below shows the cross-section of the stem between A and B. Shade the part of the stem that transports water. B. Explain why the leaves at position Y died after a few days. The water-carrying tubes have been cut off at A, so no water could reach the leaves at Y for photosynthesis to take place. Tara carried out an experiment using similar beakers A and B as shown below. Both setups were left in the open. Tara observed the changes in them over a few days and recorded her results in a graph as shown below. Explain what has happened to the volume of water in each beaker. Beaker A. Volume of water in beaker remained the same. Water did not evaporate due to the layer of oil. Beaker B. Volume of water in beaker B decreased. Water was absorbed by the roots of the plant. 3 similar pots of rose plants were selected for an experiment. Each plant had a part removed and was watered every day for a few weeks. What will happen to plant A after a week? It will not grow well. B. Give a reason why plant B will not grow well eventually. It does not have leaves to make food or photosynthesize. C. Would plant C continue to grow well? Give a reason to support your answer. Yes. It has leaves to make food. A. Which plant, X or Y, is most likely to be uprooted during a storm? Give a reason for your answer. Plant Y roots are not spread out widely, so roots cannot hold the plant firmly to the ground. B. If there are no trees to hold the soil together, what will happen to the soil when there is heavy rain? Soil will be washed away by heavy rain and cause landslides.